Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. Hey everyone, I'm Lily, and this is where my story unfolds. It's a tale that's close to my heart about family, love, and unexpected challenges. Let me take you back to the start, to the first time I met my mother-in-law, Clara. It was a day etched in my memory, vivid and full of emotions. Ethan, my husband, always spoke of his mother with a mix of affection and concern. He told me about their humble beginnings, how after his father's untimely death, Clara had single-handedly raised him in a modest, yet loving home. He admired her resilience, her strength. I was nervous but excited to meet the woman who had shaped the man I loved. I remember standing outside their quaint, well-kept house, Ethan's hand gently squeezing mine in reassurance. "She'll love you, Lily," he whispered, his eyes sparkling with confidence. I wasn't so sure. Deep down, a knot of anxiety twisted in my stomach. The door opened, and there stood Clara. She was smaller than I'd imagined, her hair a cascade of silver, but her presence was imposing. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, scanned me from head to toe. I mustered a smile, extending my hand. "It's so nice to meet you, Mrs. Thompson." Clara's response was a cool nod, her gaze never leaving mine. "So, this is the girl you chose, Ethan? She seems plain." Ethan's grip on my hand tightened. I could feel the tension radiating from him. "Mom, this is Lily, the woman I love." I tried to break the ice. "I've heard so much about you, Mrs. Thompson. Ethan tells me you're an incredible cook. I hope to learn a few recipes from you." Her laugh was sharp, almost mocking. "Cooking? Darling, I haven't cooked in years. We dine out mostly." "But tell me, Lily, what is it that you do?" The question caught me off guard. I'm currently exploring career options." I stumbled over my words, feeling suddenly inadequate. Clara's eyes narrowed. "Unemployed, then." "I see." She turned to Ethan, her voice laced with disapproval. "And she's the one you're so smitten with? Tell me, Ethan, does she even have a job?" I felt a flush of embarrassment creep up my neck. Ethan's response was immediate, his voice firm. "Mom, that's uncalled for. Lily is brilliant. She's taking her time to find the right path." Clara sighed, shaking her head. "Ethan, you were always too trusting. I just hope she's not after your money." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mrs. Thompson, I assure you, I'm not Clara, please," Ethan interrupted, his brow furrowed. "Lily is here because we love each other. She's not interested in my finances." The air was thick with tension. Clara looked between us, her expression softening slightly. "Well, Ethan, if you're sure. But remember, I'm just looking out for you. You know how women can be." I bit my lip, holding back the retort that threatened to spill. Ethan squeezed my hand again, a silent plea for patience. The rest of the visit passed in a blur. Clara's comments stung, but Ethan's support was unwavering. We left with a polite goodbye, the door closing behind us with a finality that felt ominous. As we walked away, Ethan wrapped his arm around me. "I'm sorry, Lily. She can be tough, but give it time. She'll come around." I nodded, trying to believe his words. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning, the start of a journey that would test us in ways we never imagined. Let me paint the picture of that fateful day, the first encounter with Clara, my mother-in-law. It was a bright, crisp autumn morning, the kind that fills you with a mix of hope and apprehension. Ethan and I had been planning this visit for weeks, and despite his reassurances, I couldn't shake off the nerves. We drove through the tree-lined streets, the golden leaves creating a mosaic of warmth against the cool sky. Ethan's old but trusty car hummed along, a comforting background to our tense silence. Every so often, he'd glance at me, offering a smile that barely masked his own anxiety. As we pulled up to Clara's house, a quaint little cottage with a well-tended garden, my heart skipped a beat. This was it. I smoothed my dress, a simple blue floral number, and took a deep breath. Ethan reached over, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. "You'll be great," he murmured. We walked up the path, the sound of our footsteps mingling with the rustling leaves. The doorbell echoed, a resounding chime that seemed to reverberate through my whole body. Moments later, the door swung open, and there she stood, Clara. She was smaller than I'd imagined, her hair a striking shade of silver, but her presence was anything but diminutive. "Hello, Ethan," she said, her voice cool, her eyes immediately shifting to me. "And you must be Lily." "Yes, Mrs. Thompson, it's a pleasure to meet you," I managed to say, extending my hand. Clara looked at my hand, then at my face, her expression unreadable. Hmm, Ethan certainly has interesting taste, she commented, finally shaking my hand with a firm grip. Ethan's face tensed, but he maintained his composure. Mom, Lily is amazing. You'll see. We stepped into the house, a cozy space filled with photos and knickknacks. Clara led us to the living room, where we settled onto a floral-patterned couch. The room was warm, the air filled with the scent of cinnamon and apples. So, Lily, Clara began, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. Ethan tells me you're still figuring out your career. What exactly does that mean? I felt a flush of embarrassment but tried to keep my voice steady. I've been exploring different fields. I want to find something I'm passionate about. Clara raised an eyebrow. Passionate, huh? And how do you plan to support yourself in the meantime? Or is my son going to shoulder that burden? Ethan's hand found mine, gripping it tightly. Mom, that's not fair. Lily is very capable. She's just taking her time to decide. I added, I've saved up enough to support myself, Mrs. Thompson. Ethan's not burdening himself with my expenses. Clara let out a small, almost mocking laugh. Well, I just hope you're not planning to be a permanent leech. Ethan works hard, you know. Ethan's face grew red, a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Mom, stop it. That's enough. The conversation turned even more strained after that, Clara throwing veiled insults and me trying to parry them with as much grace as I could muster. Ethan was caught in the middle, defending me while trying to keep the peace. After what felt like an eternity, we made our excuses to leave. Clara's goodbye was as cold as her welcome. It was interesting to meet you, Lily, she said, her smile tight. As we walked back to the car, Ethan's frustration was palpable. I'm sorry, Lily. I didn't think she'd be this harsh. It's not your fault, Ethan, I replied, though a part of me wondered if things would ever get better between Clara and me. That first encounter with Clara set the tone for our future interactions, a mix of tension, misunderstanding, and unspoken challenges. Little did I know, it was just the beginning of a journey that would test us in ways I never imagined. The chapter of our marriage began under a sky streaked with hues of pink and orange, symbolizing a new dawn, yet shadowed by the complexities of the relationship with Clara, my mother-in-law. Our wedding wasn't the grand affair many dream of. It was a quiet courthouse ceremony, imbued with the deep love Ethan and I shared, but shadowed by financial constraints, largely because of Clara's needs. As we stood before the judge, exchanging vows, I couldn't help but notice the absence of Clara. Ethan had invited her, but she declined, citing a vague, last-minute emergency. It stung, but Ethan squeezed my hand, his eyes conveying an apology he didn't voice. Life as a newlywed was blissful yet marred by the constant undercurrent of financial strain. Ethan was the epitome of generosity, especially towards Clara. Each month a significant chunk of our budget was allocated to her, supposedly for emergencies that somehow never ceased. One evening, as we sat down to a simple dinner in our modest apartment, the topic resurfaced. Ethan was staring at a message on his phone, a frown creasing his forehead. It's Mom again, he said, his voice tinged with worry. She needs more money. Something about the roof needing urgent repairs. I sighed, trying to mask my frustration. Ethan, are you sure all these emergencies are real? It feels like she's taking advantage of your kindness. Ethan looked conflicted, torn between his love for his mother and his responsibilities towards our new life together. I know it seems that way, Lily, but she's all I have. I can't just turn my back on her. The pattern continued, with Clara becoming more demanding and less appreciative. I began to notice a change in Ethan too. He was working longer hours, the stress evident in his eyes, his once easygoing nature replaced with a constant weariness. One day, Clara decided to visit our apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there, her eyes immediately scanning the modest decor with thinly veiled disdain. So this is where you live, she remarked. I expected something better for my son, especially with all the money he earns. I bit back a sharp retort, reminding myself to remain calm. Ethan works hard for what we have, Mrs. Thompson. We're happy here. Her laugh was short and humorless. Happy? In this tiny place? Oh, Lily, you really have low standards, don't you? Before I could respond, Ethan walked in, his face lighting up when he saw me, then falling slightly at the sight of his mother. Mom, what a surprise. Is everything okay? Oh, I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd see how you two are managing, Clara said, her tone implying that we were barely scraping by. The visit was tense, with Clara making passive-aggressive comments about our lifestyle, our choices, and particularly about me. After she left, Ethan and I had a heart-to-heart. Lily, I'm sorry about Mom. I know she can be difficult, Ethan said, his voice heavy with guilt. I took his hand, offering a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. It's not your fault, Ethan, but we need to figure out a way to manage this. We can't let her control our lives and our happiness. Ethan nodded, a determined look in his eyes. You're right. I'll talk to her about boundaries. We can't go on like this. But setting boundaries with Clara proved to be an uphill battle. Each attempt was met with resistance, guilt-tripping, and more demands. It was a cycle that seemed endless, straining our marriage and testing our patience. As each day passed, the challenges of balancing our marriage with the demands of Clara loomed larger, casting shadows over our happiness. Little did I know, these were just the first steps on a long and winding road, one that would lead us through trials and tribulations, shaping the very foundation of our relationship. The winds of change brought an unexpected twist in our ongoing saga with Clara, my mother-in-law. It was a sunny Thursday morning when Ethan, bright-eyed and unusually buoyant, came to me with news that was as surprising as it was perplexing. Lily, you won't believe this, he began, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and disbelief. Mom called. She's hosting a small party next weekend, and she wants you to come. I paused, a spoonful of cereal midway to my mouth, my brain trying to process this sudden shift in Clara's behavior. Are you sure, Ethan? She wants me there? After everything? He nodded vigorously. Yes, she was quite insistent. Said it's time to put past differences aside. I think she's really trying, Lily. I was skeptical, to say the least. Clara's previous coldness and harsh words were not easily forgotten. But looking into Ethan's hopeful eyes, I felt a twinge of guilt for doubting his mother's intentions. Okay, I said with a cautious smile. I'll give it a chance for you. The days leading up to the party were filled with a curious mix of apprehension and cautious optimism. I found myself in front of my wardrobe on the eve of the party, second-guessing every outfit choice. Ethan, ever supportive, helped me pick out a tasteful yet understated dress. The day of the party arrived, and with it, a bubbling anxiety that I struggled to keep under wraps. We drove to Clara's place, a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood, the street lined with luxurious cars. Looks like she's gone all out, Ethan remarked, his tone an odd mix of pride and concern. As we walked up to the door, my heart pounded in my chest. The door swung open, revealing Clara in an elegant gown, her hair done up in a sophisticated style. She looked us over, her gaze lingering on me a second longer than necessary. Ethan, Lily, welcome, she said, her voice smoother than I'd ever heard it. I'm glad you could make it. The party was in full swing, the house buzzing with the chatter and laughter of well-dressed guests. Ethan and I mingled, with him introducing me to a few of his mother's friends. They were polite, but their smiles didn't quite reach their eyes. As the evening wore on, Clara remained cordial, yet there was a certain coolness in her demeanor that I couldn't overlook. It was during a quiet moment, while I was alone at the buffet table, that Clara approached me. Lily, I'm glad you decided to come, she began, her tone hard to read. I know we've had our differences. I nodded, cautiously optimistic. Yes, I'm hoping we can move past that. Her smile was enigmatic. Oh, we will. Tonight is just the start. I want to show you that I can be accommodating. Just then, Ethan joined us, wrapping an arm around my waist. Everything okay here? He asked, looking between us. Just fine, Clara replied, her smile never faltering. Your wife and I were just having a heart-to-heart. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of small talk and polite smiles. As we said our goodbyes, Clara's farewell was more warm than I'd ever heard it. It was lovely having you, Lily. We must do this again. The drive home was quiet, both of us lost in our thoughts. Ethan broke the silence. See, it wasn't so bad. I think she's really trying to make an effort. I wanted to believe him, to share in his optimism. But a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach told me that Clara's sudden change of heart was not as straightforward as it seemed. Little did I know, this was just the prelude to a series of events that would unravel in ways I could never have anticipated. The days following the party were filled with an uneasy calm, like the quiet before a storm. Ethan was buoyed by what he perceived as a positive change in Clara's attitude, but I remained skeptical. My doubts were soon validated in a way I could never have imagined. It was a mundane Tuesday morning when my phone buzzed with a message that set the wheels of revelation in motion. It was from Clara, which was surprising in itself. Her message was brief. Lily, can we meet for lunch today? I have something important to discuss with you. Puzzled, I showed the message to Ethan. He looked equally surprised. That's unexpected. But maybe it's a good sign, Lily. Maybe she really wants to make amends. With a mix of curiosity and trepidation, I agreed to the meeting. We decided on a quaint little cafe in town, neutral territory. As I waited, sipping on a nervous cup of coffee, Clara walked in, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Lily, thank you for coming," she started, her voice lacking its usual confidence. "I wanted to talk to you, away from Ethan." Her words sent a chill down my spine. "What is it, Clara? Is everything okay?" She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "It's about the party, and well, everything else. I haven't been entirely honest with you or Ethan." I leaned in, my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" Clara's eyes met mine, filled with a mix of regret and something else I couldn't quite place. "The truth is, I've been struggling financially. The party, the lifestyle, it's all been a facade. I'm drowning in debt, Lily." I was stunned into silence. Clara, the woman who prided herself on her independence and financial savvy, was in financial trouble? It was almost too much to comprehend. "I've been too proud to ask for help, too ashamed to admit my failures," Clara continued, her voice breaking. "I've been harsh to you, judgmental, all to hide my own insecurities. I'm sorry, Lily. Truly sorry." For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. The revelation was too big, too unexpected. "Clara, why didn't you tell us? Ethan would have helped you." She shook her head. "I know, but I couldn't bear to see the disappointment in his eyes. You must think I'm a terrible person." I was conflicted, my emotions a whirlwind of sympathy and residual hurt. "It's not about what I think, Clara. It's about being honest with Ethan. He deserves to know." She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I will tell him. I just needed to tell you first. I've been so wrong about you, Lily." The rest of our conversation was a blur. Clara opened up about her financial woes, her pride, and how it all led to her lashing out at me. As I left the cafe, my mind was reeling. This changed everything. Ethan was waiting for me when I got home, his expression anxious. "So, what did she want to talk about?" I took a deep breath, the weight of Clara's confession heavy on my heart. "Ethan, there's something you need to know about your mother. She's in trouble, financial trouble." As I relayed Clara's confession, I watched as a range of emotions crossed Ethan's face: shock, disbelief, and finally, a deep, overwhelming sadness. "We need to help her, Lily," he said, his voice firm despite the shock. "She's still my mother, no matter what." I nodded, knowing that this revelation was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with challenges, but also a chance for healing and understanding. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: it would take all of us working together to navigate the twists and turns that lay ahead. The days following Clara's revelation were a whirlwind. Ethan and I were thrust into a world of financial advisors, debt counselors, and endless discussions about the best way to help Clara without enabling her. It was a delicate balancing act, one that tested our patience and understanding to its limits. Ethan was torn between his sense of duty as a son and his responsibilities towards our own budding family. "Lily, I can't just leave her in this mess," he said one evening as we sat in our living room, papers and bills spread out before us like a battlefield. "But I also can't keep bailing her out. It's not sustainable." But the path to recovery was far from smooth. Clara struggled with the change in lifestyle, her pride often clashing with the reality of her situation. There were arguments, tears, and moments of despair. Yet, through it all, Ethan and I stood by her, offering support but also holding firm to the boundaries we had set. I nodded, my mind racing with the same concerns. "We need a plan, Ethan. Something that helps her get back on her feet without us being her safety net forever." One particularly tense afternoon, Clara came over, frustration written all over her face. "I can't live like this, Ethan. It's too much. I've lost everything." The plan we devised was thorough yet strict. Clara would move into a smaller, more affordable apartment. We would help her consolidate her debts and set up a payment plan. In return, Clara agreed to attend financial management workshops. It was a new beginning for her, a chance to start over with a clean slate. Ethan took her hands, his voice calm but firm. "Mom, you haven't lost everything. You still have us. But you need to understand that this is for your own good. You can't go back to the way things were." I watched as mother and son faced off, the air thick with unspoken words and emotions. It was a turning point, a moment of reckoning. "Clara," I said, stepping into the conversation, "we're not doing this to punish you. We want to help you build a better future, one that's stable and secure." Clara looked at me, her eyes softening. "I know, Lily. I know you're both trying to help. It's just hard to accept." As the weeks turned into months, we began to see a change in Clara. She became more involved in her financial planning, taking an active interest in turning her life around. There were small victories, moments of genuine progress that filled us with hope. Ethan and I also grew through the experience. Our relationship, tested by the fires of family drama, emerged stronger and more resilient. We learned to communicate better, to support each other through thick and thin. One evening, as we sat in our backyard, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, Ethan wrapped his arm around me. "You know, Lily, through all of this, I've realized how lucky I am to have you. You stood by me, by us, even when things got tough." I leaned into him, feeling a sense of contentment wash over me. "We're a team, Ethan. We'll get through anything together." And so we moved forward, navigating the challenges of life with a newfound strength and understanding. We had weathered the storm, emerging not unscathed, but stronger and more united. It was a new chapter for us, one filled with possibilities and the promise of a brighter future.